Google logged 24,000 interactions with me in 1 month. And I don't even use Gmail. Every time I typed something in Google Docs, every time I downloaded an app, every route I mapped, every video I watched. It's basically 800 entries a day. And I'm someone who actually thinks about this. I've adjusted my privacy settings. That's not a glitch. That's the product working exactly as designed. This is how Google spies on you. To give an example of how Google collects your information, we have these fishbowls.
The small fishbowls are Google's services, like Search, YouTube, or Maps. With every login, you add a bit more of your information. Over time, as data is added to the fishbowl, the color deepens. The big one? Well, that represents the future of Google. It's taking information from all the other fishbowls to create the most personal surveillance tool Google has ever built. And it's important you know about this because
it's basically impossible to avoid Google. You're watching this video on a Google platform right now. So today, I'm gonna walk you through exactly how Google spies on you, how it has 2 massive backdoors that you've probably never heard of.
And I'll also explain what can be done to avoid Google's attention. Google Search has been building a profile of you since you first asked it a question, clicked on a link, or hovered over a page. And it does this because
Google is not a tech company. Google is an advertising company that builds technology to collect your information so it can sell ads against it. Over 70% of its revenue, 70, comes from advertising. Everything else, the phones, the browser, the email, the maps, the cloud storage, all of it exists to feed this advertising machine. And by default, every single one of those services is set to watch and record what you do. Google calls this personalization. Anytime you see Google offering you a personalized experience, what it's actually telling you is, we're watching what you do so we can show you ads.
Protect yourself. Stay signed out while doing your Google searches and use a VPN as well. Or just use a different search engine. Google Chrome is the world's most popular browser. Nearly 2 out of every 3 internet users are on Chrome. And of course, as you use it, Chrome tracks you across the internet. But if you think you can prevent tracking if you simply sign out of Chrome, you're wrong. Signed in or not, it sends what you type into the address bar to a Google server in real time, even if you don't hit enter. And the moment you do sign into a Google service, like Gmail or YouTube, by default, Chrome signs you in as well. That's creepy. But maybe you can just avoid Chrome, right? Well, there's a problem with that too. Many people think Google is just a collection of sites on the internet.
But in reality, Google is the internet itself.
Over half of all websites run on Google Analytics, which captures information about every visit.
Millions of sites also use reCAPTCHA, which means Google is verifying, and therefore tracking, your activity on these websites that aren't even Google's.
Protect yourself. Turn off Allow Chrome Sign-In, improve search suggestions, and make searches and browsing better to prevent the spying we mentioned above. You can also turn on Do Not Track requests, even if these don't always work. YouTube is the most important video platform in history, and it's so good because it closely tracks your search history, watch time, and more to build a sophisticated audience profile, slotting you into a group.
Groups like dads in Florida over 30 who like baseball, and charges advertisers to reach those groups. These profiles can get incredibly specific and incredibly granular.
Now, Google claims it never sells your data, but it kinda does.
Technically, Google isn't handing your file to an advertiser.
It's just selling access to the person that fits the profile the advertiser defines. It wants to keep the data to itself.
Because the data is what makes Google valuable. The more it knows about you that no one else does, the more it can charge. So Google has your data. It has a lot of your data. Google will tell you that you can turn off data collection at any time. And technically you can. But Google also knows that the vast majority of people will never touch the default settings. And Google makes it so that their services don't work as well if you do activate these privacy settings.
Protect yourself. You can use Google while signed out, but you won't get as personalized a video feed.
And if this is where the story ended, a company hoarding your information to sell ads, it would be unsettling, but it might be tolerable. But the story doesn't end here, because remember, Google has 2 secret backdoors.
Google does keep introducing new ways to read your inbox, and it reserves the right to train its AI on your personal emails, and it allows companies to hide tracking pixels in those emails. All gross, but probably still less worrying than backdoor number 1, Gmail's relationship with the US government.
The US government has multiple ways of getting your information from Google without ever needing to go to a judge. Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act allows the government to surveil non-US persons abroad. But if you're a US citizen who's communicated with anyone outside the country, your communications can get swept up in that surveillance incidentally. They don't have to be targeting you. They just have to be targeting someone you talked to. Then there are national security letters. The FBI can send one of these to Google and force it to hand over your name, your addresses, and your email addresses, no judge required. These typically don't give access to the content of your messages, just everything about who you are and who you talk to. And most recently, the government has started using administrative subpoenas to access account metadata. These are so legally questionable that every single time someone has challenged one, the government has withdrawn the request rather than let a court rule on it. But most people never find out their data was subpoenaed, or they find out too late.
Protect yourself. Turn on Ask Before Displaying External Images, and uncheck Turn on Smart Features in Gmail, Chat, and Meet, and Google Workspace Smart Features to keep tracking pixels and Google out of your inbox. Or, again, just use a different email service. In 2022, Google paid nearly $400 million to settle a case alleging it kept tracking users who turned off location history. Because even when you're not using Maps, Google can follow your location using Search, Chrome, or just your IP address. This leads to backdoor number 2, Google's ad system, which uses all this data to auction off your profile to advertisers.
Google sends out what's called a bid request to potential advisors, asking who wants to buy that ad slot. And that bid request can contain your GPS coordinates. This happens potentially hundreds of times a day, every day. The advertisers are supposed to use this information to decide whether to buy the ad. But data brokers also sit on these exchanges. They can harvest the bid stream data and add it to their own profiles of you. And because this information is being broadcast hundreds of times daily, those profiles can get incredibly detailed. This is how your data ends up with data brokers. This is how it ends up with government agencies like ICE. Not because Google sold it, but because the advertising system broadcasts it.
Protect yourself. Go into Google Maps and turn off Timeline, also known as location history. Then go to the settings on your phone and turn off location services for all Google apps, not just Maps. Okay, credit where it's due. Google is not stealing the words from your document. But let's not pat them on the back too hard. Cast your eyes to the top of the screen. You see that little star icon? If you click that button, you could end up feeding everything you write on your personal account into their new and very hungry data gobbling AI, Gemini. And that brings us to the future of Google and the future of surveillance capitalism. Search, Chrome, YouTube, Gmail, Maps, and Docs. Remember we said Google was building something to pull all your data together? This is what happens when you combine all of Google's services and then inject them with the power of AI.
Google calls this personal intelligence. It lets you use Gemini to search across everything Google knows about you. Your emails, your calendar, your YouTube history, your searches, all combined, all searchable by AI. Google, knowing this might freak people out, has already tried to get ahead of it. They've declared that Gemini doesn't train directly on your Gmail inbox or your real-time location. But when you go to the actual support page, it says something else. If you connect your apps to Gemini, your data is used to improve Google services, including training generative AI models for everyone. It goes further. We train our generative AI models off of these summaries, excerpts, generated media, and inferences. Read that again. The more you use personal intelligence, the more your personal information appears in the results, the more of it gets used to train Gemini, not just for you, for everyone. Eventually, all of your data, your photos, your emails, your location history could be fed into the model. Google built a tool that makes its surveillance useful to you so that you'll consent to making it useful to everyone else.
And Google now gets paid for your data twice. Once when it sells ads to you, and once when it sells an AI it trained on you.
You'll never be able to remove all of your information from Google, but the less information you let it get, the cleaner your fish tank will be. And be honest with yourself about what Google already has, and what you're willing to give it going forward. Because the real problem isn't that Google is doing something unusual. The real problem is that Google built the internet that we all depend on, and then wired it to watch us. Is this really the internet that we want?